The story of Paige Swanson is way more messed up than people give it credit for, and most of that is because everybody remembers the wrong part of it. She gets filed away as the girl who showed up to beat Sheldon at his own game and then went off the rails, which makes her sound like a warning about smart kids who get too cocky. That is not what happens to her. She is the one kid on this show who could sit in a college class full of grown adults and then go play with dolls at a sleepover during the same stretch of her childhood, something Sheldon could never manage nearly as naturally. So I'm going to go through every moment that shaped her, from season 2 all the way to her last one, because the damage only makes sense as a chain. And there is a very good reason nobody wants to sit with where that chain ends. Almost everybody files Paige under the same label, which is Girl Sheldon, the rival who shows up to make him mad for a few episodes and then goes away again. That label is doing a huge amount of damage to how people remember her, because when you actually watch her first run of appearances in order, she isn't the copy of him. She's presented as the more socially adaptable version. She's got everything he has, and then one extra thing on top of it that he struggles to develop for most of his life. There are 2 moments during her first season that make this obvious, and the show places them close enough together for the contrast to land. In season 2, episode 2, Paige walks into Dr. Sturgis's college class as another 10-year-old genius, and starts answering the stuff Sheldon can't get to first. Sturgis is thrilled about her. He's suddenly got 2 prodigies in the room, and he doesn't hide how impressed he is with the new one. And Sheldon absolutely cannot deal with it. He doesn't even know what he's feeling. Mima has to be the one to sit him down and explain that the thing eating him alive is jealousy, because he can't work it out on his own. And Paige isn't rattled by any of it. She's not in that room desperately trying to prove something to him. She's just good, and she treats being good at school like it's the most normal thing in the world. Sheldon spends the episode trying to understand and defeat the threat she represents, while she basically gets on with her day. That difference in how the 2 of them carry the same gift is the entire point of her introduction. Then a little later that same season, Missy runs into Paige at the mall and invites her over for a sleepover, and Paige just goes and has a completely normal night. She plays with dolls, scares the life out of Georgie, and tells a scary story like any other kid her age. She also raises an idea during that stretch that lands very differently once you know where her story ends up going. She points out that if you take a smart kid and deny them a normal childhood, you can end up with an adult who doesn't know how to function socially. Now, look at who's saying that, and look at the room she's saying it in. She's in a house with Sheldon, who has already attempted a sleepover, but still treats ordinary childhood like an unfamiliar scientific experiment, can't play a game without trying to impose rules on it, and struggles to be around other kids without something going wrong. Paige can do both sides of it. She can sit with college students and keep up, and then be a regular kid with a regular friend on a Friday night. At this point in the series, Sheldon can only do one of those things naturally, and everybody watching knows which one. She's also basically right, which is the part that stings. Grown-up Sheldon does become a man who struggles with people, and the girl identifying the danger early is doing it at a sleepover, in her pajamas, at 10 years old. She understood that being a prodigy could come with a social cost before most of the adults around either child seemed willing to confront it. That's what makes her whole story worse instead of just sad. The show doesn't introduce her as a kid who's already completely lost. It introduces her as the kid who seems to have cracked the code, the one who got the brain without obviously paying the same social price, and then it lets you sit with that for a while, so you get comfortable. Every bad thing that happens to her after this hits harder because of these episodes, because you already saw the other version of her, and you know it was real. But that version of Paige only dominates her first few appearances, and it isn't because she suddenly becomes a completely different person for no reason. Serious problems are already developing inside her house before we ever see the divorce finalized, and the show tells us about them in the exact same episodes where she looks the most okay. So here's the part that changes how her whole story reads once you catch it. The pressures surrounding Paige do not suddenly appear when the divorce becomes official. They are visible much earlier, and her giftedness is already tangled up with the stress inside her family. You can watch it happening in the background of the episode that introduces her, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, because the show puts it straight in the parents' mouths and then moves on like it was just a joke about tired grown-ups. Back in that season 2 introduction, Mary invites the whole Swanson family over to the Cooper house so the parents can compare notes on raising a genius. What comes out of that conversation is not two proud couples swapping cute stories. Linda and Barry talk about how much of their time, attention, and energy goes into Paige, and Barry says out loud that Linda focuses so much on their younger daughter that there is very little left for him or for their older kid, Erica. And while that's going on in one room, Erica is off with Georgie and Missy, and those three bond over versions of the same problem from the other side. All three know what it's like to have a gifted sibling whose needs dominate family attention. The show puts the adult's version and the kid's version of the same wound in the same episode, and it plays both of them largely for laughs. Then, in Season 2, Episode 7, the whole thing gets worse on a family trip to the Science Museum. Linda and Barry are fighting so badly by that point that each of them ends up unloading on George separately, which is a pretty wild thing to do to a guy you barely know. While the adults are busy with that, Sheldon and Paige sneak into a part of the museum they're not allowed in and get caught. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Paige tells Sheldon that her parents fight constantly and that she thinks they're headed for a divorce. She's 10 years old, and she already knows. She has watched the conflict closely enough to figure out where it is going before the adults have explained anything to her on screen, which is what kids actually do when the people around them think a problem is staying contained. And Paige also knows that her needs have become part of the pressure inside the family. The show never establishes that raising Paige is the sole cause of the divorce, and Linda and Barry clearly have broader problems with each other. But the first episode has already identified the time, money, and unequal attention surrounding Paige as one real source of resentment. So now you've got a 10-year-old sitting in a college classroom being told she's brilliant, and then going home to a house where her brilliance has become part of an argument she never asked to be in. Those two things cannot sit next to each other without creating damage. And what the show documents most clearly is adults concentrating on her performance, her behavior, and her educational placement, rather than giving her a sustained way to process what is happening to her family. That's the quiet setup for everything that comes after. Much of the attention Paige receives from adults runs through her brain, and at the same time, her academic needs have become entangled with the tensions in her house. A kid can't hold both of those things comfortably for very long before something gives. So the divorce happens mostly off-screen, and the next time we see her, she looks like a completely different kid. The early reactions focus heavily on the surface of what has changed. Her clothes are different, her grades are sliding, and she's got an attitude she didn't have before. It is easy for everyone around her to see those things as a behavior problem. It takes longer for anybody to reach what is underneath them. Season 3, Episode 12 is the one where all of it shows up at once. There's a mall trip, and Paige says she needs a backpack, but instead of going where Mary expects, she heads straight to Hot Topic. She steals body glitter while she's in there, and then she hides it in Sheldon's backpack rather than carrying it out herself, which is exactly the kind of move that makes her rebellion easy to dismiss as proof that she has simply turned into a bad kid. But later in that same episode, she actually opens up to Sheldon, and what comes out of her is not attitude at all. She describes what it's like bouncing between two houses now, having to listen while relatives run her dad down, dealing with her dad acting immaturely and hearing that her sister is constantly crying. Then she says the thing that should have set off every alarm in the building. She cannot make herself care about her grades anymore, no matter how much everyone else does. And the person who handles that moment correctly is Sheldon Cooper. He starts out trying to fix her, because fixing things is the only setting he's got. And then partway through, he stops doing it. He listens to her without arguing and without correcting anything, and then he goes and gets her something hot to drink. That's the entire intervention, and it becomes one of the clearest moments of emotional support Paige receives on screen. Then in Season 4, at Bible camp, we get the other side of him. The two of them are forced to attend by their mothers, and Sheldon decides to treat the whole thing as another contest to win.
Ha! You have to go to Bible camp.
He pushes an argument at her, brings her parents' divorce into it, and she punches him in the face. That punch gets remembered as Paige being a violent kid, and that misses what actually sets it off. Sheldon takes the most painful thing in her life and throws it into an intellectual argument because he wants to score a point. The adults around Paige have generally been managing her living arrangements, education, and behavior. Sheldon is the one blunt enough to drag the wound directly into the open, and he does it in the worst possible way at the worst possible time. The tea thing matters more than it looks too. If you've watched The Big Bang Theory, you know that grown-up Sheldon offers people a hot drink whenever they're upset, because it's the one social move he trusts. This episode presents his conversation with Paige as the origin of that habit. One of the rare times in his childhood when he manages to comfort another human being properly, it's Paige, and he barely understands what he did right. Which is also the scariest thing about this stretch of her story. One of her most effective sources of comfort is a boy with almost no social skills who stumbled into helping her and then made everything worse the next time they met. Her mother is trying, and Linda continues looking for ways to help when she appears, but many of those visible attempts revolve around schools, tours, and finding Paige the correct academic setting. None of those academic fixes reaches the loneliness and family pain Paige describes. So, Paige is sitting there with a problem that the systems around her are not built to solve. The adults know how to handle her education. The person who once really listened cannot be relied on to understand what she needs every time. And she is more than smart enough to notice the
I'm completely alone, and the one person I thought would understand is having the time of his life.
difference. This is where her story stops being sad and starts being frightening. Because once a kid begins to believe that the people around her cannot deal with what's actually wrong, asking for help becomes less attractive. In Paige's later appearances, she increasingly tries to put distance between herself and her life, and every time she does it, the distance gets bigger. Laid out in order, it stops looking like a random string of bad decisions, and starts looking like the same escape instinct growing more dangerous. It starts in Season 4, Episode 16. President Hagemeyer wants another prodigy for East Texas Tech, so she makes Sheldon give Paige a campus tour to sell her on the place. Paige goes along with the whole thing, but she's only there because her mother wants her to consider it. What she actually wants is an out-of-state university like Harvard or Columbia, somewhere far enough away that she would have to leave home. That same visit gives us the prank. Sheldon starts thinking Paige is into him, mostly because he has no idea how any of this works, and Paige lets him keep believing it for a while before drawing all over his face. People argue about that moment constantly. Plenty of viewers read it as her being cruel to him for no reason, and plenty of others see it as the same competitive teasing those two have been doing to each other since the day they met. Then comes Season 5, Episode 17, which is the episode where her academic life and her personal life finally stop coexisting. She's attending the University of Texas and visits East Texas Tech as part of a lecture team, doing precisely the kind of advanced work everyone always assumed she was built to do. And she has nobody. No friends, no group, and no sense that she belongs there. She ends up hiding out in Sheldon's dorm room because it is one of the few nearby places where somebody actually knows who she is. The episode does not show a university support system reaching her before she disappears. She's a child operating in an adult academic environment, officially assigned a chaperone who goes out drinking with the rest of the lecture team, while the only thing anyone seems certain of is that she can do the work. She can do the work. That was never the only question anybody needed to ask.
Mona? She's like 30. It's the worst.
Why'd you need a chaperone?
Maybe.
And while she's in Sheldon's room, she finds out that Sheldon has friends. Actual college friends. More than one. She does not take it well. Later, she comes back, says she wants to drop out and transfer, and asks Sheldon to keep the plan secret. Sheldon eventually tells Missy. Missy tells Mary, and by the time they go to the dorm to help, Paige has left a note and disappeared. The episode does eventually clarify that after several frightening nights, Paige makes it back to her mother's home to deal with the situation. But line up the steps before that and the escalation is right there in front of you. It starts with wanting a school far enough away that she'd have to move, moves on to hiding in someone else's dorm room, and lands on leaving without telling the adults where she is. Same instinct each time, just further from anybody who could reach her. But the Sheldon detail is what really does the damage here. For years, those two are among the only people in each other's lives who understand what being a child genius actually costs. Sheldon is the living proof that people like them struggle to make friends and fit anywhere. That's a story Paige can survive, because it means the problem is their situation and not her personally. And then he gets friends. The most socially hopeless person she has ever met walks into college and comes out with a group while she's sitting in her room studying alone. The explanation she'd been relying on stops working in that moment, and the possibility left underneath it is that maybe the problem is not giftedness in general. Maybe she thinks it is her. The episode never says that realization is the single reason she leaves college, so you cannot reduce the whole decision to that one dorm room encounter. But it makes one thing extremely clear: Paige is not failing because the academic work is beyond her. The problem the episode foregrounds is her isolation, her resentment at being treated like a novelty, and the fact that she hates the life built around her intelligence.
Just trot me out like the Novelty Act to help get funding.
They did that to me here too.
And the show never gives us a scene where an adult lays these incidents next to each other and recognizes the repeated pattern. The distant college, the dorm room hiding, the note, and the disappearance all get handled as separate problems. The audience is the one invited to connect them and see a kid who keeps trying to get farther away. Everything up to this point still leaves room for something to change. Paige returns to her mother's home, which means the Season 5 story does not end with her permanently missing. But by Season 6, her attempts to escape are becoming physically dangerous. And what happens from there is the part people leave out when they talk about this character. And then there's what comes after that, which is somehow worse than any of it, because it isn't a scene at all. Season 6 is where young Sheldon places a young teenage girl in real danger twice, and then walks away from her permanently. And I want to be careful here, because there's a version of this video where I tell you the show killed her off or permanently destroyed her. And that isn't what happened. What actually happened is stranger than that, and once you notice it, you're not going to be able to watch her episodes the same way again. Season 6, Episode 13 is the frat party. Sheldon finds out Paige has dropped out of college altogether, and the way he finds out is by discovering her at a fraternity party, underage, drinking beer with people years older than her. She's preparing to leave that party with an older student, and the only reason that does not happen is that Missy and Sheldon reveal how young she is, and the guy immediately backs away. Her safety in that moment comes down to other people intervening before she leaves with him. Missy is the one who finds her afterwards, crying by a fountain. What Paige says there is the whole character in one go. She's brilliant, but she has no friends and nowhere she feels she belongs, and all of it is sitting on her at once.
What good is being smart if you're all alone? Let's go to Sheldon's dorm and get you cleaned up.
Missy and Sheldon end up walking her back to his dorm so she's got somewhere safe to sleep, choosing to hide her there for the night instead of immediately calling her parents. Adult Sheldon's narration says that even 30 years later, he still does not find the events of that night funny. Then, Season 6, Episode 16 is the last time we ever see her. Missy takes George's truck and calls Paige to come with her, and the two of them just go. They eat at a diner and walk out without paying, sleep in the truck overnight, and point themselves at Florida, where the plan is to start over. That plan only makes sense if you're a teenager who has completely run out of realistic ideas. The police stop them in Louisiana. Missy admits that she is 13, confesses that she took the truck, and tells the officer about the unpaid diner bill. Linda drives George and Mary out to retrieve the girls. When the adults start assuming Paige may have been responsible, Missy tells them that running away was her idea, which is probably one of the kindest things anybody does for Paige in the entire series. And the Coopers respond by forbidding Missy from seeing Paige again. That is the last time Paige Swanson appears on screen. She's not in Season 7 at all. There's no episode where somebody checks on her, no scene where Missy sneaks off to see her anyway, and no line from grown-up Sheldon explaining what she ended up doing with her life. She doesn't turn up in The Big Bang Theory either, but that absence is not evidence of some hidden catastrophe. Paige was introduced in September 2018 during the final season of The Big Bang Theory, after the original series had already been running for more than a decade, and Sheldon's adult history was largely established. She was created for the prequel, not planted in the original show as a mystery that needed solving. So there's a hole where the rest of her story should be, and fans have spent years filling it with the worst things they can imagine. The theories run from her dying to addiction to prison, and none of it is canon.
There's a note.
There is nothing in either show that confirms any of those outcomes, and an adult Sheldon never mentioning her does not prove one. But I understand why people reach for those theories, and it isn't because they're morbid. It's because a bad ending is still an ending. If something definitive happened to her, the story would be finished, and you would get to be sad about it and move on with your day. The version we actually got does not let you do that. What we actually got is a show that spent 5 seasons documenting a child prodigy's decline, with each new appearance building on the problems established before it, and then just stopped. The last confirmed thing anybody knows about Paige Swanson is that she was stopped by police in Louisiana while trying to reach Florida in a stolen truck. She was a young teenager who had dropped out of college, had no realistic plan, and was then separated from Missy, one of the few peers who repeatedly showed up for her. And the show carries on for another whole season without her. The Coopers get the rest of their story told all the way to the end, and Paige is simply not in the building anymore. One of the final consequences she experiences is losing contact with one of her closest friends, and the series decides that is where her story ends. If you want more young Sheldon videos like this one, there's another one on your screen right now. Go watch it.